nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, here with my co-host Glenn Martin. Really excited to get into this week one matchup. It is here. Hopefully you guys are wearing your pajamas inside out for good luck before the game. I know that I'll be, and I'm really excited to talk about this matchup between the Browns and the Ravens. But before we do that, I want to talk to you guys about a couple things. One, take 2 seconds to subscribe. And make sure you always leave your comments because we'll interact with you back and forth. But also, want to shout out our 3 new patrons from our Patreon. As I mentioned before, you guys can interact with us in a myriad of ways, of course, through the comment section. But also, if you want voting rights into our show, if you want to interact with us more in depth and get your feedback from, on the show, go ahead and hit the link in our description for our Patreon. Ben Smith, Thomas Martin, and of course, Tony Thornton are our 3 new patrons, and we're really excited to have them on, and we'll hear more from them as the season goes on. But make sure you guys get in and involved as well. We want this to be your show. We want it to be about you guys. So without any further ado, let's get into the week 1 outlook of this game.
Let's do it.
To start on the opposing team's roster, we like to start there, talk about them, provide some context. So let's dig right into it. As far as the coaching staff, what are you expecting to see? What can we use as a reference point to expect, to know what we should expect from them?
Yeah, so I look back and I see they obviously hired Kevin Stefanski to take over as head coach back in January, named Andrew Berry as their executive VP. Shout out, since he's from Bel Air, Maryland, right up the corner. And they also had brought in Joe Woods to be their defensive coordinator. They signed Bill Callahan, veteran offensive line coach, who could end up paying big dividends for them. So, yeah, I mean, what I like to do in this situation is just look back at where they were previously. So you just immediately pull up the 2019 Minnesota Vikings, who were led by Stefanski as their OC. And one thing you got to remember about Stefanski is he is a Gary Kubiak disciple. So, obviously, if you remember when he was here with Joe, that's the type of offense that you're going to be seeing. So it's going to be as you can tell from the numbers I'm about to read, it's definitely a run-first offense. Last season, the Minnesota Vikings ranked. Let's see, I have it here. They ranked 22nd in the league in passing yards per game at 220. They ranked 6th in rushing yards per game at 133. And 8th in points at 25.5 points per game. So a team that likes to establish the run, they use the zone run scheme. We know they got a couple really good running backs in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So, you point to a couple of it's funny how their teams kind of parallel a lot of ways in their skill positions. I think the Browns have the edge in pretty much all of them as far as talent.
Except quarterback.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that. Yeah. But they had a similar team as far as skill position talent. So yeah, I mean, why don't you let them know what Dalvin and a couple of those guys did?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dalvin Cook, if you guys remember, he started off hot really early. End of the season well, but at the end of the day, Dalvin Cook had 250 carries for a little over 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns, average 4.5. So that's something, like you said, that's something we should expect from a Nick Chubb, who I consider to be more talented. I'm sure a lot of people do consider, Chubb to be a more talented back with a higher ceiling coming into this season. And then Kirk Cousins, went for 307 with 3,600 passing yards. Now, this is the interesting part. He had 26 touchdowns for 6 interceptions. I don't think that Baker goes from 21 interceptions to 6. That would be an improvement of enormous proportions. I don't see it happening. But it's something to keep an eye on. I think that should be his goal. As far as Stephon Diggs goes, he also had one heck of a year last year. Little under 1,000 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
He had 1,130.
Oh, 1,130. Okay, and how many completions did he have?
He had 63 catches for 1,130 yards and 6
and touchdowns. Unhappy the whole time.
Yeah.
And 6 touchdowns, average 18. So that's something you can use as a comparison to OBJ as well. And they had the 1-2 punch with him and Thielen, just like we had, we're facing against the Cleveland Browns with Juice, of course, Jarvis Landry, and OBJ. Now, like you said, they do have more targets, I think, than the Vikings, of course, with Austin Hooper, Kareem Hunt, those other guys. And like we mentioned in the show with Jeff, there's only one ball. There's a lot to go around. But overall, I mean, this is a brand new coaching staff. Everything that's going on right now in the Cleveland Browns is all new, right? So it's going to be really interesting. Is there anything specific that any mistakes or miscues that you see happening at the beginning of this game, Glenn, based on the fact that all these moving parts are coming together?
Well, I don't know if it's mistakes, but I just think that they're going to have to go a little bit vanilla to start the game on both sides until you know what you got. So certainly offensively, they're going to want to establish the run. That is the utmost importance for Baker. He needs a strong run game and then play action off of that in order for him to be successful, because last year he was just a hot mess in the pocket. If he had – it wasn't even – like when he faced pressure, it was bad, but he was also seeing phantom pressure. He was seeing ghosts out there. So it was more than – it got to a point where they didn't even need to pressure him. He felt the pressure whether it was there or not. So – and that's with a pretty darn good run game last year, but I think they're going to look to do even more than that this year. And with Hunt being there all season and not being suspended for the first half, that helps. That's going to help Chubb stay nice and fresh for the long haul. But I definitely think you can expect to see some vanilla offense and defense to start the game. But I'm interested to see, because the way they won last year was obviously big runs by Nick Chubb, and the Ravens just couldn't do anything to stop it. So it's going to be interesting to see how the new additions with Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe, the draft picks of Queen and Harrison, how they can affect the run. Because if they can't run the ball, if the Browns can't run the ball, I have a feeling even with the additions to the offensive line and elsewhere, it's still going to be a long day for Baker.
Yeah, I tell you what, I thought it was interesting, the interview that Calais did with NFL Network, because he talked about him and Wolf historically in their careers, as Derek Wolfe do well against that stretch zone scheme. They play well against it. And I think it also makes a difference putting Brandon back in his natural position. So I'm excited. Like you said, it'll be a nice test, because I think later on in the season and potentially in the playoffs, it's going to mean a lot that we can stop that type of a run game. So it's great to see it early on. We get some questions answered really quickly. The other thing is, and I don't want to talk about this too in depth here because, this is a show that we want to be appropriate for everyone. But how do the news clippings of Odell Beckham Jr. and his outside life habits affect him in this game? Do you think it has any impact on him, positive, negative? Because there's no way that Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey are not saying hey, that catch was doo-doo. Or there's so many ways you can go with this. They're wearing a Browns uniform. They're uniforms. Their team name is Brown. I mean, this can't be any worse as far as puns, right? Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure he's going to hear about it quite often on the field, but a lot of that's going to come down to how well he plays. So, if you're gonna bring that up and you're gonna talk about it as a defender, then you better back that up with some good play, because I think a lot of people are expecting OBJ to kind of look like the old OBJ after he got the hernia repaired, and while Thielen and Diggs were both, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell because Thielen missed so many games last year. But it'll be interesting to see how they use both of them, because in my opinion, Landry had the better year last year.
Yeah.
Landry's the better blocker, more enthusiastic blocker on the outside also, and he's the better leader. So I'm interested to see who actually gets the bulk of the targets between the two, because, I mean, I guess we could have compared it last year, but it's hard to tell when they didn't both play equally how he would have divided them between Thielen and Diggs last season. But it's going to be – yeah, if he goes off, then he can kind of talk back. But if he's shut down and relatively ineffective, then it's going to be bad for him, because, they're going to mention – I mean, how do you not bring that up, right?
Yeah, and I love that on Twitter, the resurfacing of the pictures of Marlon on top of OBJ are coming up when he lost that little hand battle and just held on for dear life to Marlon's helmet, because he was like, you know what, I ain't got nothing else to do. So I think they're both remembering that. I think it's going to be fireworks from the beginning. I hope there's no cheap shots, but I wouldn't put it past anybody. So, I think it's going to be interesting and a lot of questions that need to be answered as far as this Browns team goes. But let's unless you got other notes on the Browns, I say we move over to our boys.
Well, I got one more. I just want to point out that Delpit did get injured. Safety,
you're right.
LSU out of LSU was expected to be their free safety this year, and he's gone for the season. Now, they did have depth there. They brought in Andrew Sandejo, which they expected to be their third tight end. But he's certainly a quality backup. Now he's thrusted into a starting role, and he's not horrendous, but it's obviously a step down from Delpit and what they were expecting from him. And then, of course, we had to bring up the bulletin board material that Sheldon Richardson provided. Not really insulting, but definitely said that he mentioned that Lamar didn't turn into Aaron Rodgers in the offseason and said that they need to stop the run and basically kind of overlooked his passing ability and undermined it, certainly. What do you think? What do you think that move is like? Do you think that's a smart play to undermine his ability?
Oh, ask the Miami Dolphins about that week 1. Lamar.
I don't even know if you blame them. You blame the media for that, right?
Yeah, Lamar, I saw the stat line. He had 3 carries for 6 yards, I think, against the Miami Dolphins in week 1. Come on, man.
Some yards passing, yeah.
Yeah, so 5 touchdowns, broke the scoring record for the
Ravens. And did he even play the fourth quarter?
I think he was on the sidelines with Oakley's. No, I don't know if he was or not. But, I mean, yeah, it was something ridiculous. He played 3.5 quarters. And so I just don't think it's a smart thing to do. I don't think you give the reigning MVP, who is still being disrespected on the daily. Look, give me 30 seconds here.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I went off yesterday on Twitter. You guys go check it out. 410 at 410_sports talk. I'm sick and tired of people wanting Lamar Jackson to fail. Like, he's not a bad guy. Glenn, you said it before. He is the easiest superstar to like. He's not a jerk like Baker Mayfield. He's not a super egotistical like OBJ. He's not all these polarizing things. Lamar Jackson is a genuinely nice guy who has a super unique skill set. And I feel like people want him to fail, not because they don't like him as a person. That could be part of it. I don't know. But because it would validate their point that he doesn't fit the mold as a quarterback. He doesn't play the traditional quarterback role. These purists. I'm tired of hearing that purist crap, traditional quarterback stuff. Look, Lamar Jackson is incredibly talented. And if he shows any improvement at all, you have 0 chance. So good luck. You better hope he regresses like you guys are thinking. And I love that everyone says, we have tape on him. You have tape on everyone. We have 2 decades of Tom Brady tape. And what did that get you? 6 Super Bowls.
Right.
So stop with the tape crap. With Lamar, you can have perfect tape, and he's still going to beat you with his feet. So, look, man, stop hating on Lamar Jackson. All of you guys that are out there, I've gotten that off my chest. I can't stand it. But as far as Sheldon Richardson goes, good luck. If you're in a scenario where you're trying to stop the guy, you would probably prefer playing Aaron Rodgers than Lamar Jackson. So
Sheldon just better hope he doesn't end up on a poster,
exactly,
having his ankles broken in that
just
pocket.
Put in a pretzel.
Yeah. So no, I agree with you though. I think that's it's silly to poke the bear. You don't want to make Lamar or the rest of this team any angrier. I think Colin Cowherd said it right. This roster's stacked, and they're pissed. They're pissed already. Don't piss them off even more, and don't give them any added motivation to a regular season game, because I think a lot of people know that they need to prove themselves in one area, and that's the playoffs. So I feel like you should be hoping that the Ravens overlook this regular season game if you're an opponent, not adding fuel to them flames, because if you piss them off, it's not going to go well. So,
yep.
We'll see what happens. But, let's move over to the Ravens and some things to talk about. Just a quick note. Jaleel Scott, a lot of people liked Jaleel, and we're hoping he'd make it to the practice squad after he was cut. He did make it to a practice squad, and it's a familiar place for old Ravens. He was picked up by the Jets practice squad.
Jeez Louise.
As this seems to be a common theme for the Jets to pick up former Ravens. But good to see him go to a place where he could actually see the field, because their receivers right now, their top 3, I believe, are Perryman, Jamison Crowder, and Sims, the young receiver out of Baylor. So
yeah, he's got to be saying to himself right now, I'm already better than Brashad Perryman, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
like, in his mind,
maybe not on the field. When you look at him on the practice field, remember, Brashad still can look impressive at moments because of his fight weight speed. Yeah. But yeah, we know his hands. Oof. And he's injury prone. He just got back to practice, by the way. Perryman was injured again. And then also some injury notes for the Ravens. Got a few guys missing practice. Tyree Phillips, the new guard. Chris Moore, wide receiver, is dealing with a finger injury that's keeping him out. Justice Hill, I'm not sure of the exact injury, but he's missed quite some time in camp.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
And
not sure
then,
of the exact injury either. I think they've been a little vague on it.
right, but luckily, there's three other pretty darn good running backs there. They should be fine. And then Justin Metabike also has been missing quite a bit of time lately. So Derek Wolfe will look to certainly pick up that slack.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important one there is Tyree Phillips, right? Because he was the one, vying for that starting role at right guard. Everyone seemed to have there seemed to be some momentum behind the idea of him starting at right guard. So I don't think that'll happen week 1. I think it's going to be Fluker based on the fact that it sounds like he's a little banged up. So I'm okay with that. I mean, going with the vet. Obviously, Tyree must have been playing really well, even to be mentioned in that conversation, which is great news for us.
Yeah.
But you look, Fluker's pretty tried and true. He looks like he's in good shape. I mean, I think he can get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a couple questions I think that are important to review as far as things to focus on in this game, guys. I think the first one off the bat is, what will the balance in the run game look like, and what will dictate that? How much will we see Dobbins? How much will we see Mark? Even Gus? It'll be the three-headed monster, like you said. Justice, I'm sure, won't dress. But as far as Dobbins and Mark, what will that balance look like? I'm sure Dobbins saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire last night and was like, dude, I want to start like that.
Dude.
And he has every possibility of doing so. But, of course, Mark Ingram is the wily veteran.
Yeah.
So he'll probably get first crack. But how do you envision this going? Is it going to be a 50-50 split? Is it going to be a 70-30 split? Do you think it's all going to be dependent on the hot hand?
Yeah, I think Dobbins carries relies solely on how well Dobbins does with his first few. I mean, I've gotten into many of Facebook battles with people who tell me that if Justice Hill just got more carries, if he could just had more of an opportunity to get into a rhythm, that he would do more with it. I don't subscribe to that theory whatsoever. I think the carries you get, you have to do something with in order to garner more carries. You don't just get carries on the hope that you'll do something with them. You have to do something with your initial touches and carries for you to get more. That's just, I mean, you think that's common sense, but if you see some of the battles I've been in, it's obviously not. I look at a guy like Gus Edwards in his first start as an undrafted rookie in 2018. He got 17 carries and he turned it into 120 yards and he never looked back. That's what you need to see out of Dobbins. You need to see him when he does get the ball early, that he does something with it, that he's not scared of the bright lights, which I don't think he will. It's a guy who played at Ohio State. He's been in big-time programs his whole life. He's played in way bigger crowds. Obviously, he's not going to see anybody in the stands for the Ravens in week 1, and he's played in front of 100,000 people crowds and done exceptionally well. So I don't think that'll be a problem. I have such high hopes for Dobbins. I think, I know I love Mark Ingram. He might be our best leader and our most vocal leader, and our most importantly, I mean, he's incredible what he brings, and he's still a really, really good player. But I just feel like Dobbins is just a little bit better in pretty much every area, other than maybe pass blocking. But not to say Dobbins is bad at that. I just feel like if Dobbins does what I think he's going to do, which is take advantage of every carry he gets, I think it's going to be no reason why he doesn't get at least 10 carries in this game.
Yeah, I think that's pretty conservative too. I think that's a fair number. That's a fair bar to put it at based on the volume of touches the running back's going to get. The running back unit, they're going to have based on the times we rush the football. So that's going to be interesting. I think that's a great point too. He's got to do something with it, right? Coach Roman talks about how good Mark is at getting everything out of every single run, right? Like everything that he can, he got the potential out of it. But with Dobbins, if he can do that in the 3, 4, 5 yard runs, he can do more than Mark when he gets an open field. No knock to Mark, but Dobbins just younger, faster, straight line speed. He'll break away from you. Now,
and I think he has more make you miss in the open field.
And we might not be saying the same thing at 31 years old like Mark is, right? But right now he ain't 31 and he's rearing to go. So I think that's going to be interesting. The other thing too to mention is I'm interested to see how often we see both of them on the field.
I want to see the full house offense that we saw a little bit of it last year, but a lot of it had Ricard in the backfield. I want to see 2 running backs and Lamar in the backfield.
Oh man, that's got to be scary. I mean, my goodness. All right, so let's move on to another question here. What will a new and improved Hollywood Brown, a screwless in his foot? No more screw in the foot. He's put on the weight. We had his strength and conditioning coach on, his wide receiver coach on. Everyone is raving about him. What will he look like in this game? I think that both corners should be nervous. I think that the safeties should be nervous. How do you see this one going for Hollywood?
Well, to me, and hang on for 1 second.
Yeah, well, let me answer this one for yourself.
Hold on. I want to say this. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. It doesn't look like Greedy Williams is going to play. He's been having injury concerns, and that bodes well for the Ravens. I know that, to me, he had a little bit of a disappointing year. I know Jeff mentioned he was okay for a rookie and looked to get a big improvement from this year. But if he's not there, they are already thin at corner. So now he's gone. They're really just down to Denzel Ward as far as a guy that scares you, because they mentioned Risen also mentioned that Kevin Johnson came over and he just lacerated his liver, I believe.
Liver. Jeez.
Which, if anyone's ever been punched in the liver, knows how much that hurt. I can't imagine a lacerated liver. I mean, a liver punch is the worst body punch you can anyway. But so I expect, and I don't know if I expect it, but I'm interested to see if Ward follows Hollywood or if he stays on his side, because Denzel Ward's the only one I feel like that can hang with Hollywood. So it'll be interesting if he follows him. So if Ward does follow Hollywood, do you think that they end up using Hollywood more as a distraction, or do you still think that they try and get him the ball in any way they can?
Yeah, that's a great.
Ward's not like, we're not talking about Darrelle Revis in his prime, but he's a good player.
No, he's a good player. You're right. I can see him being used as a distraction for sure. But the thing about Hollywood, it only takes 2 catches, and he's 80 yards and a touchdown. You know what I mean? So it's about biding your time and lulling the defense to sleep, making him feel comfortable. Use him as a distraction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Put some cheese on the trap, and then let it fly. It
kind of reminds me of Ty Hill last night. I know you watched the game. They, a lot of times, because he was getting the double team, would throw to Robinson, who, by the way, had dropped 2 touchdowns last night.
Gosh,
he ended up catching a lot of balls, and then Ty Hill got a touchdown late. But in the first 3 quarters, I don't remember Ty Hill getting hardly any targets, but yet the defense was still counting for him.
Right, absolutely, because like you said, it's lightning in a bottle. So I think that's important to keep an eye on. And then the underneath stuff is going to be fun, because I think we have a lot of talent with Willie Snead, James Prochet, and Devin Duvernay. I think that underneath, those guys are a handful. I think they're being underrated, not talked about enough. And I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think the improvement to Hollywood's health and game are going to make their lives even easier. And that kind of leads into what I want to talk about next. Duvernay and Prochet, do they come out hot? So this is the real question. Last year it was obvious that Lamar wanted to get the ball to Hollywood, right? Mm-hmm. How does he get the ball to how confident does he feel in these 2 guys? How good does he feel spreading the ball around? Will they? Because think about it. As far as confidence level, he's had the most time with Hollywood, Snead, and Boykin. Mm-hmm. He seems to be relatively confident in Snead and Hollywood, not crazy confident in Boykin. So. Yeah. But even less experience with Duvernay and Prochet. Mm-hmm. So I wonder off the jump in this game what kind of an impact they'll have. I think that, based on Coach Dave Robinson's talk about Duvernay, coming in as a running back at a high school and having that yak potential, I can see him getting the ball a decent amount. Not that he's built like this guy, but Debo might be a little bigger. Debo Samuel from the Niners, but I can see him being used in that type of a role, right, where you just get him the ball, get it in his hands, and see what he can do. But what's your take on those 2 guys?
I think that's a good point. I think that's how they should. I'm going to tell you right now how they're going to use them, Jimmy. I'm going to tell you and Ravens Nation how they're going to use them. They're going to use Duvernay. I think that they're going to use Hollywood as, like I just said, at least early on, as mainly a distraction, a guy that is going to command the attention of the defense and open it up for the other guys underneath. And I think James Prochet is going to show off his route running skills this game. He's going to be the underneath guy. He's going to be the Willie Snead kind of role. And also, I think he's going to be asked to do a lot of returning, but, we're talking about on the offensive end. And then Duvernay, I think, will be used, like you said. You pointed out his running back background would make him very useful.
So you were just talking about James Prochet.
Yeah. And now I'm moving to Duvernay.
Yeah, you said Duvernay. That's all. I just
Oh,
wanted to
yeah. So
clarify.
Prochet will show off his route running prowess.
Gotcha.
Prochet will, be used underneath to get open because his ability to use his route running ability can get him open in short areas.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they'll use him for. Now, Duvernay, with his running back background, will be used. I think they're going to try and get him the ball on at Texas. They got him the ball any way possible. They threw him wide receiver screens. They threw him slants. Anything to get him the ball and then see what he can do afterwards. And I think that's what they'll do. They'll use the jet sweep. They could probably use him in a wide receiver screen role, which I think everyone's been wanting the Ravens to use more screens in their game, not just with the receiver. I saw a screen last night by the Chiefs. It was so cool, the play design. He fakes a screen to the running back to the right, then comes back, fakes a screen to the left to I believe it was a wide receiver, and then throws a screen right down the middle to Travis Kelce where he caught it right about the line of scrimmage and then runs for 18 yards. I love those plays, the deception, and I think that nobody deceives the defense more than the Ravens. So I want to see more screen game out of them this year. They got the guys to do it. They got a bunch of guys that can do something with the ball after they get it, which is rare here in Baltimore. We don't typically have a bunch of guys with yak ability. But yeah, that's how I'm predicting Duvernay and Prochet to be used. I think they're going to get a lot more play than a lot of people were expecting.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. It's going to be really interesting.
But let me ask you this, because this has been the story of the offseason as far as the Ravens, is the interior of the offensive line. I don't know if people are making a big enough deal out of the loss of Marshall Yanda.
Right.
But that's a Hall of Famer who's now gone. That's got to impact the team. I mean, I think it was Film Study Baltimore. Why am I blanking on his name? Ken McCusick. Yeah. They pointed out the off-schedule stuff that Yanda does. That's the hard stuff to replace. Yeah. His ability to look off and help out guys, even though it's off schedule. So how do you see who's going to be at center, who's going to be at guard? How's the O-line look?
Yeah, this is how I want it to go. I want Bozeman at center. I want Bredesen at left, and I want Powers, and I want DJ Fluker at right. And obviously we know who the tackles are going to be. But this is how I think it's going to end up being. Mm-hmm. Now, we did see some snaps that got me excited of Bozeman playing center, but I think it's going to be Bozeman at left guard, Macari at center, because Skura's just not there yet. And I think that it's going to be DJ Fluker at right guard. I don't know if DJ will start all year, though. That'll be really interesting. And then the other thing to think about, I mean, at least as a possibility, if you want size on the line, if Tyree Phillips is of starting quality, whoever has the easier time swapping over to left guard, then you can throw Bozeman at center. Could you imagine all five of those guys on the line? You got Orlando Brown starting from right to left, Orlando Brown, DJ Fluker, Bradley Bozeman, Tyree Phillips, and then Ronnie Stanley. Ronnie Stanley, the skinniest one, yeah. I mean, geez, a whiz. That would be a lot of man-moving power. But so I think it's going to be Macari at center, and I'm nervous about it. Sheldon Richardson's a good player.
They have four is good.
Exactly, and so I'm missing one of the guys' names that they also have up front.
Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon are pretty good.
Yeah, but
they'll be on the outside. Yeah,
right. There's another interior guy.
Billings, I believe Andrew Billings. They got.
He's a player. But I mean, they have some big guys up front, and it makes me nervous because, like you said, last year Macari ended up in that Titans game backwards with his face, on his belly with his face facing Lamar Jackson a couple times. Mm-hmm. So that makes me nervous. But unfortunately, that's how I think it's going to end up. They have infatuation with Skura and seem to be sticking in there with Macari.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think fans need to realize that it's likely going to be Macari out there, whether they are happy about that or not. I think fans are kind of torn on him. Some people I'm impressed for what he did for who he was last year. An undrafted guy, small school guy, relatively small guy in general for his position. And he played okay, But anyway, it'll be something to watch. It'll be something to see. And I will be interested to see how long Tyree Phillips takes before he's in the starting lineup as well.
Yeah.
And then another guy who's expanded his role, certainly on offense, is Mr. Project Pat Ricard, who is no longer a two-way player, Jimbo. He went from a undrafted D tackle out of Maine to a Pro Bowl fullback, and now will be moonlighting as a tight end, it seems. So What are your thoughts? He slimmed down. He said he dropped maybe 5 to 10 pounds. Still has his strength, just trimmed out a little bit. Still 295. Still a huge man, and probably the biggest tight end in the league now that he is a tight end. It's somewhat part-time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Ricard being used as a tight end and the lack of a natural third tight end?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. At first, I was really nervous about, like you said, the lack of a third tight end, but I think it shows confidence in the ability of Pat to pick up, the offense, expand his role. And I tell you what, I bet you he feels really underpaid right now. Just being honest here. I mean, the value they're getting out of this guy is he's getting paid as a fullback. Let's be honest. And I think he's going to have way more responsibilities than that. The other thing I'll mention is 295 is probably the biggest fullback too. I mean, I don't know how many
he is.
You know what I mean? Juszczyk is not.
Tight ends are usually a little bit bigger, but
it's crazy when you watch Kyle Juszczyk and then you look at Patrick Ricard.
Not the same.
No, not at all. And they move almost the same. I'm not saying he moves quite as well as Kyle, but he can move. So I'm excited to see him out there plowing some people down. I'm interested to see how much confidence they really have. Not his ability to pick up the offense, but in passing situations, are they really going to use him as a tight end in passing situations and expect him to catch the ball? So that's what I'm interested to see. Because like you said, we only have one true pass catcher at tight end.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be really
not to say that Boyle and Ricard have bad hands. It's just they're not natural pass catchers.
Right. I mean, they're not. I mean, yeah, on their best day, they're not Mark Andrews and they're not Hayden Hurst as far as being pass catchers.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So that'll be really interesting. And I don't know. I mean, how do you see it going? I think it's going to be good, but I think there will be moments where you're like, dang, he's not a pass catcher.
Because Ricard is he's great at blocking at any level. He can block the big slobber knockers, but then he has the feet and the quickness to block a safety down the field, on the third level. But there's no doubt that the way they used Hayden Hurst, which is the role that Ricard will be taking over as far as his blocking role, Hurst was asked to get first to the third level, not even to ignore the first two levels on certain plays. He was asked just to go to that third level. And I don't know if Ricard, even as athletic as he is at his size, can do that. I don't know if he can run. I mean, obviously Hurst was maybe our fastest player. He certainly played the fastest on the field last year. I don't know if Ricard can do that, but I do think that he would be better as an inline blocker than Hurst was. So it's kind of like he's better at certain, but he's definitely not nearly the tight end that Hurst is. I mean, he was incredible pass catcher, Hurst was, and I think we're going to see huge things from him in Atlanta. So I think our run game could be improved from Ricard stepping in, but at the same time, the deception of Hurst. What if he goes out? What if he comes screaming up the seam? You don't have that anymore with Ricard. So you lose some in the passing game. You lose some as far as deception, but you may gain a little bit as far as just being able to move bodies because of his size and strength. So it will be interesting to see how, that wrinkle we talked about, how they go from being a tight end, 3 tight end to obviously not that, and a team that looks to get their wideouts and their running backs more involved in the passing game. Yeah,
absolutely. So the other thing I want to mention before we get into our keys to victory and our predictions is who's going to be the kickoff, who's going to take the responsibilities for returning the football as far as kickoffs go and punt returns. I think that Prochet seems to be the guy that's penciled in at punt returning. I don't really know. I haven't heard too much about kickoff. He might be the same. What's your take, and how do you feel about it? Before you answer, though, I'm feeling a lot less nervous. If you guys haven't watched it, our video with David Robinson said, look, James Prochet is going to catch the football. He's going to catch the football. He's got great hands. He's going to catch the football. So hopefully he didn't jinx him, put too much pressure on him. But that made me feel good because there are a lot of times where I'm screaming at the TV. I know you're doing the same. Just catch the football. Catch it. Right? Yep. So what do you think that's going to look like?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think especially with this offense, just get the ball to Lamar and let him do what he does. I'm excited to see Prochet because, like you said, Coach Robinson hyped him up. I mean, he talked about the drills that they do where he's asked to catch 5 straight punts. And, by the way, he can't put down any of the previous 4.
He said he got to 6 and one time 7.
I mean, can you imagine you're already holding 6 footballs and you're asked to catch a 7th? It's punted. And I know a lot of people haven't seen what an NFL punt looks like. It goes up pretty daggone high, and the difference of spins, they can do a lot of times they do spiral, a lot of times they'll do end over end, just depending on what they need from the ball. So it is exciting that he can do it in practice. Now, we still have to see if he can do it on game day. And, of course, even though there wasn't preseason and that this is his first game will be live action, I'm assuming that the lack of fans will impact the difficulty level of catching a punt when you're not looking up to 75,000 screaming maniacs. I got to imagine that makes it a little easier. So maybe that takes some away from the that leap that he's got to make coming to the next level. I don't have much concern, which is weird because he's a 6th-round pick. But for whatever reason, I guess it's just the reports. I think it's also the confidence being shown by the coaching staff to cut a Barner who we just saw got picked up, I believe, by the Bucks. Just like, geez, the Bucks just keep getting richer. But I think it's the confidence that the coaches have shown, the confidence that Coach Robinson's shown, gave me zero concern with Prochet as a punt returner. Certainly a guy to at least catch it and then get upfield, maybe not break a long one, but just catch it, get upfield, take what you can get, and then get down and get the ball to Lamar. Now, as far as kick return, that's a little bit more up in the air because right now Justice Hill's penciled in as the primary kick returner, but I don't think he's going to play. So it'll be interesting to see who takes that. Chris Moore's the next guy. He's also been hurt. Right. I don't think he'll play. So does Prochet double dip and take both duties on? I think kick return is much less necessary. Most returns are brought out to the 25, and I actually would prefer that because most of the time you don't get out there, even if you do decide to return it. But if they do kick it short, which a lot of people are, they're kicking it high and short and asking their return guy to tackle them before the 25, you still need a guy back there that can do it. So I would predict Prochet to double dip, but if need be, Willie Snead could go back there and catch a ball. I don't want to see Marquise back there for either one unless he's just asked to catch it, and that's it. So I would expect Prochet to double dip, do both jobs, but maybe we might see Willie as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, so let's get into our keys to victory and our predictions, what you've all been waiting for. All right, so we have 3 keys to victory. We're going to be doing this every week. If you guys were familiar with the podcast before we went to YouTube, of course, you're familiar with this. Back in the old days, Glenn used to shake his keys in order to I
forgot about that.
That's we were a garage band type operation. So let's get into our 3 keys to victory. I'm going to start off the first one. If that's all right with you, Glenn, and then we'll go from there. So the first one, not one that took too much guesswork. Not anything that's, this is right off the top of the head. Stop the run. We don't want to see these long gashing runs from Nick Chubb, even from Kareem Hunt. People, I think, are sleeping on the fact that Kareem Hunt is a good runner of the football. He's not just a pass catcher. So either guy on the field, we need to be careful. Stop the run. Keep him in front of you. I think that's rule number 1. That's the first thing we got to do in this game to be successful. What else you got for me?
Well, I just want to belabor that point one quick second. Chubb had 20 carries for 165 and 3 touchdowns last year in the game in which they won. So, stop that guy. And that's why they brought in Calais. That's why they brought in Wolf. That's why they drafted 2 linebackers in the top 3 rounds. They did it because they needed help in that area, and hopefully it paid off. All right. Next one, win time of possession. This coach wants to run the ball. He wants to hold on to the ball and keep Lamar on the sideline. So the Ravens have to stop that from happening. They have to do what they did last year. They get up early, and then they run you to death in the second half, and they dominate the time of possession. So both teams are going to look to establish the run, hold the ball, and keep the other offense on the sideline, and the Ravens have to be the team that does a better job at that, right?
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't say that any better myself. The last thing I want to mention, and this is as well back to the defense like we talked about in the first key of the victory, is hit Baker early. Get him nervous. Get him seeing ghosts. 21 interceptions last year. I love it. Let's double him up today. Force him to be one-dimensional, like you mentioned, with stopping the run, and then get physical with Baker. Man, can you imagine being his size and trying to throw over Calais Campbell? Good luck, dude. I mean, come on.
And not to mention that left tackle's got to deal with Calais in his first game ever.
Yeah, so good luck. So those are our keys to victory. If the Ravens can do those things and other things, but those are our three most important things that we believe would cause the Ravens to win this game. So let's get right into our predictions here, Glenn. This is what you've all been waiting for. We have our crystal ball out. We're ready to go. Glenn, I'll give you the honor and make the first prediction of the Ravens game this year. How do you think this game will turn out?
Well, I think that the Ravens are at a huge advantage having entire coaching staff return and having the majority of their team return. So I think they get the job done. They're favored by 7.5, which is a huge number. Anytime that it's over a touchdown, then especially when you consider there's no fans, so you don't even get that home field advantage boost, or at least it's cut down by a point or two. I think that the Ravens roll. I got them winning 34-17, and it'll be pretty easy.
Wow, that's a very convincing win. That'll be exciting, and I hope that is the score. I have mine, I think, a little tighter here. I think the Ravens will roll. I think that we'll get up on them early, and Baker will make some mistakes. OBJ will get a little frazzled, as he tends to do, and it will be 31-20 by the time the fat lady sings and this game is over.
The hay is in the barn.
Hay is in the barn.
Sandusky who says that? Yeah.
Jerry Sandusky. That is right. Shout out to Jerry. We appreciate you watching the show. So those are our predictions. That's our outlook for this game. Let us know what you guys think. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave us a like and your comments. Appreciate all the support and look forward to hearing from you guys throughout the season.
See you.